All right, you guys, once you have your drawing done, you have buildings in the foreground, you have some in the background, and you have at least 12 buildings in there. You have your sidewalk in there. Then it's time to take a black marker, a fine line flare, and then and make sure you're using a straight edge. Don't try to just do this. Don't try to just do this freehand because you want nice straight lines. So you're gonna take your ruler and you're gonna just line it up. You're just gonna trace over all of your pencil lines. So I had a student do this one for me, so it's already done and I'm ready to color. Once you have, so I no longer need my triangle. Once you've gone over all your pencil lines, take your eraser and just kind of erase over the whole picture so you can get rid of all the little pencil marks that you might see. Now you want to do the whole thing before you start coloring. And then it is time for us to start coloring. So the first thing you want to think about, so this is all about color and our color wheel. So the first thing you want to think about is where's your light source coming from? So is the sun coming from this direction or from this direction? So if you want your sun coming from the left-hand side, then the left-hand side of all of your buildings are going to be a little lighter than the right-hand side. The right-hand sides are all going to be in shadow a little bit. Excuse me. So let's say I'm going to do my brick building first. Now you could be creative and you can color these buildings whatever colors you want. They don't have to be realistic. But I'm going to pick a brick color. So I'll start with this. I'm going to use I'm going to use two reds. So two kind of, this is darker red. And then I'll use 3. So if I want my light source coming from this direction, then I'm going to have this side be light, that side, the left side is going to be lighter, and then the right side is going to be in shadow. So very lightly, coloring in one direction, I'm going to color the left-hand side of this building. Now I want to go nice and neat, kind of layering my colors in there. Now just for my demonstration purposes, because I don't want this to take forever, I'm going to just color the top part. But you don't see which direction my lines are moving because I'm coloring nice and smooth. If you don't get it nice and smooth, you're gonna have to keep layering more and more coats on top. So there we go, there's one. And I'm gonna take my darker color, go over it a little bit. I don't want it too dark because this is actually the side that's gonna be darker. But I'm wanting to just get this more kind of a tint of brick, which would be a little darker, so I'm gonna add another shade. Okay, now you could just keep going until you get the color really solid. I don't mean dark, but I mean really solid. Like if I put another coat now over the top of this one, you can see my coloring getting more and more solid. You are gonna see little lines that you might have erased. You can see I made a mark right there. And I kind of indented the paper, so there's really not any way I'm gonna be able to get rid of that. But the more I go over this and layer it, the more my color stops looking like colored pencil and it starts looking like almost like a magazine print or something. So it's nice and bright, nice and bold. Okay, so we'll pretend like I did that whole side all the way down. I'm just gonna take the darker color over it one more time. Okay, now I'm gonna do this side, and remember now my light source is coming from this direction, so I want this side to be more in shadow. So first thing I'm gonna do is color it the same as this one. You notice when I'm coloring here, I have my fingers way up on the colored pencil. So I'm getting a little smoother color. I'm not applying as much pressure though. I'm gonna move to this direction. So I colored in one direction, then I colored in the other direction, and that way I'm getting my colors laid in there nice and smooth. Now it's still not as dark as this side, and this side has to actually be darker than this side. So remember I added my darker red on top of that. See, when I go in the other direction, see how it smooths it out so nicely. And then one more shade because I was trying to get this nice and solid. Now, if you're a perfectionist and you want to go back and kind of add, a little bit of darker color around just the edges of the brick, And some of them, you could do that. It's gonna take a little more time. But brick would be a little bit more like that. Okay, so now I've got them about the same color. So to add shadow to this side, you can either use the color opposite. So if I was using red, my color opposite is opposite from red on the color wheel. And I have these little color wheels up on my desk. I can give you one. So if I was using purple and coloring my building, the opposite color would be yellow. If my building was yellow, the opposite color would be purple. If I was coloring it with blue, the opposite color would be orange. If I was coloring it orange, the opposite color would be blue. So we can use the color complement to add a shadow. So I'm gonna, since I used red, I'm gonna use green. Now it seems kind of strange that you'd be using green. I'm gonna go right over it nice and light, and you can see how it tones that color down. So adding the color complement to a color takes the color so it's not as intense. It makes it a little bit grayer or darker. Like magic. So let me just, now you might want to give it a couple coats depending on if you want it really in shadow or if you just want it in a little bit of shadow. You can decide, but I should be able to see that you have one side of a building in shadow and the other side of the building nice and bright. So I should be able to tell by looking at this where your light source is coming from. Okay, so you could use that, or you could use black. You can always use the color opposite, or you can use black. Just so I'm gonna go one coat over it with black here. I like using the color opposite instead of black because I just think it keeps the colors a little bit more vibrant and less gray, muted. But you can do it either way. We just should see. So now, I'm not gonna color this whole thing, of course, for my demo, but if I wanted to do, for the rest of these buildings, all the left-hand side is gonna be light, and then the right-hand sides are all gonna be in shadow, darker. So all right-hand sides shadow, all left-hand sides lighter. Now, if your light source is coming from this side, then you're gonna have all the right-hand sides lighter and the left-hand sides darker. It depends on which side your light source is coming from. The tops of the buildings are always gonna be lightest. So like this building here, let's say I wanna do it, let's say I wanna do that building blue. So I'm gonna start with my top because you're only seeing the roofs on the buildings that are below the horizon line. So anything above the horizon line, we're only seeing the edge of the building, so we don't have to worry about the top of it. But anything below the horizon line, now really this would be in shadow. So you would like put a shadow on this from this building here if the light was behind it, but I'm not gonna have you worry about all that because that really gets complicated. So I'm just adding a little bit. Now I'm gonna just take a lighter blue over the top of it to get that color a little bit more saturated. I don't wanna say darker, I just wanna say more solid, saturated, kind of brighter. Okay, now this is my left-hand side, this is my light source, so I'm gonna color this side with the dark blue first. Just gonna do the top of it again because of my demonstration here. I don't want to take forever. And then I went over it with a lighter blue, getting it the same as the top first. It's gonna take us some time coloring these in if we're gonna do good quality coloring. You're not seeing my pencil lines. You're not seeing, like, it doesn't look like I'm scribbling to color this in. I'm coloring nice and neat. So I want to get this side now just a little bit darker than the top. Now remember, when we color in one direction and then we move, when we color in the other direction, it keeps things nice and smooth and nice and even. So now I can see I'm starting to get a little bit darker, right? Now this side is gonna be in shadow. So I'm gonna try to get this one like this one first, light. I don't have to go all the way down on this one, kind of nice. On all the other ones, I put the dark blue first and then the light blue. I don't think it's gonna matter, but we'll see. Okay, now once I get it the same as this one, I've got to figure out what is my color opposite. So I'm using blue, so my color opposite, I'm going right through the color wheel. I'm gonna use orange to make the shadow. So I'm gonna go over the top of this with orange. Now you are gonna see a little bit of the orange through there. Don't worry about that. But it's gonna tone your color down. Make it look like it's in shadow. And I'm gonna go over it. God, that purple, the purple and the blues look so similar. I almost picked up that purple. I'm gonna go over it with my darker blue one more time. And then a little bit more of the orange, and then that looks pretty good. Now remember, if you want, you could always use the black too. So color opposite or black. Decide your color source. Is it on the left? Is it on the right? And then top story is gonna be lightest. Then one side is gonna be medium, and then the other side in shadow is gonna be darker. All right, have fun coloring.